Hello, my name is Joey, and this is Jessica, and we are here to talk to you during CHD Awareness Week about our congenital heart defects and our stories and how we cross paths. So, how you doing, Jessica?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
So, the interesting thing is Jessica and I both have a birthday in February, and we're 2 days apart.
Yep. So happy birthday tomorrow to you.
And happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you.
Um, so since you are a little bit older, I'm not going to tell anybody your age.
Right. Oh.
Um, what congenital heart defect were you born with,
Mm-hmm.
and how many surgeries have you had?
So I have had 5 open heart surgeries, multiple caths, and echoes and all that kind of stuff. But I was born with a defect called tetralogy of Fallot with pulmonary atresia. And when I was born, it was actually called severe tetralogy of Fallot with severe pulmonary atresia. But since I've had my last surgery, they said we can drop the severe part off and just be tetralogy of Fallot with pulmonary atresia now. So that's what I have. I was diagnosed at birth. So I'm 39. I'll just throw it out there. I'm 39. And when I was born, they didn't really do ultrasounds, right? So, like, unless they had another baby before that had issues and they were just checking to make sure the second baby was fine, they didn't really do ultrasounds back then. So, when I was born, I came out blue, and they were like, a nurse actually was like, I think there might be something wrong because she's like purple. And so I was born in a hospital in Dallas, and luckily there was a children's hospital next door. Children's Hospital of Dallas, actually. So they took me by ambulance to Children's, and my mom was 19 when she had me. So already like a teenager having a baby, then being told that there's something wrong with their heart. And she's like, what the heck? So my dad would actually go back and forth between Children's Hospital and the hospital my mom was at. There's like a bridge connecting the two hospitals. So
Yep.
he would just go back and forth and check on, both. So my first open heart surgery was a couple of days after I was born, and then my last one I had was in 2011. So, yeah.
So it's interesting you bring up the ultrasound stuff because when my mom was pregnant with me, I believe it was during her second ultrasound, um, they thought I had a hernia.
Oh,
Yeah. And so they wanted to keep an eye on it. And as things progressed, they found out that my liver was outside my body.
oh, wow.
And so they're like, okay, if his liver is outside his body, we might want to start checking his other organs
Right.
to make sure they're okay. So they checked my other organs, and it turned out I was diagnosed with my pulmonary atresia before I was
Mm-hmm.
born, also ventricular septal defect
Mm-hmm.
and tetralogy of flow. Um, and so originally, my mom's doctors told her to have an abortion
Yeah,
because they didn't think I was going to make it.
for sure.
Yep. And then she met with a pediatric cardiologist, and he encouraged her. And oddly enough, he was my cardiologist for 33 years.
Wow. Yep.
Yep. And once I was born and they got through with patching my liver up and getting other things done, uh, pediatric cardiologist, started giving her a little more encouragement and hope that I would survive.
Yeah.
I've had 3 open heart surgeries. 1987, I think the week before Christmas, which sucked at the time because my mom resided in Grand Rapids, and the surgery was almost 3 hours away in Ann Arbor
Oh my gosh.
at University of Michigan. So here my mom is spending Christmas of '87 in the hospital with me.
Sure. Yep.
A lot of her family came down to support
That's
her.
nice.
Yep. So that was awesome. I had my second surgery when I was a junior in high school.
That's so
2000,
hard in high school. That's a hard age to go through this
yep,
kind of
yep, that was 2002. And boy, I've talked about it a little bit before, that it really kind of changed my attitude and personality a little bit.
For sure.
And then the last one
Mm-hmm.
was 2014.
Yep.
And that's kind of where I want people to kind of pick up on. So prior to my open heart in 2014, it was February 2014,
Yeah.
evidently enough.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, prior to the surgery, like I really had never connected with anybody that had CHD. Like I had known a few people and
Yeah.
a few people have talked to me, but I never really had a deep, meaningful
For sure.
connection and friendship with somebody.
Yeah.
So I started getting into support groups on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I remember said my diagnosis and said my age and all that good stuff. And lo and behold, you reach out.
Yep.
Now, I mean, for you, prior to me and you talking, did you ever really have a connection with anybody that went through similar stuff?
So my story is kind of weird. I think I was like seeking so much. I was seeking support so much, but I didn't know where to go because when I was told in 2011 that I needed to have a heart surgery, I wasn't expecting it at all. Like in my mind, I felt fine. I was feeling good and, living my life like a normal 29-year-old would do. And then I went for my yearly checkup, and my cardiologist was like, I think it's time. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, so I'm looking at your echo from last year compared to this year, and there is significant narrowing of your artery. And I don't, the way that it kind of works is as you get older, when you have a CHD and you've had your pulmonary artery replaced, scar tissue builds up over time. And the last pulmonary artery I received, I was 12. So I was like growing, right? So I was
Yeah,
growing into a teenager, and they gave me one from like a kid size. So I was growing, and I didn't, the artery was done growing at that point, and it was filling up with scar tissue. And he was like, it's time to have surgery. I was shocked. I was like, are
yeah,
you kidding me? Like, I feel fine. Well, I didn't feel fine, but I didn't realize it because, like, when you start to get to the point where you need surgery, you get out of breath, you get tired really easily. But I didn't feel it because it's so gradual. It just feels normal to you.
yeah,
So when he told me that I needed surgery, I was like, I need to find a support group. So I found a support group in my area that I went to in person. Well, when I walked in the room, I was the youngest person there by probably 60 years.
yeah,
So they were very excited to like have a young person in the group, right? But
yeah,
I mean, that group was all about like cholesterol, and these people had all developed heart disease because they had had a heart attack like later on in life or something. They were not born with it. And it's two completely different things. Being born
yes,
with it, rather being diagnosed with it later in life because you've had like an event, like a cardiac event. So as sweet as these old people were, it wasn't the group for me. So I stayed with them for like, a year until I ended up having my surgery. And then I didn't go back because at that point I was like, half of them passed away. And I don't know, it was just weird. So then I found the Facebook groups, and that's where I really started to find people like my own age. I was like, oh, wow. Because the thing is, like, at my age, a lot of people that were born with what I have didn't make it.
yeah,
They died. So it's really cool to find somebody who's my age who has the same issues as I do, who's still here, and it's encouraging. And a lot of people, man, I see people on these CHD pages who have the same problems that we have, and they like Sean White, for example, talk about these people who were born with it, and they go out and run marathons and are in the Olympics. I just learned last night Arnold Schwarzenegger has a CHD. I don't know
yeah,
how I didn't know that, but
yeah.
I mean, people go on
Well,
to amazing things.
but the problem with that, and I actually was just talking to somebody about this the other day, is
Mm-hmm.
that there's a lot of actually prominent celebrities and athletes that have it,
Yep.
but they don't want to talk about it.
It's like the stigma around it. It's so
And
weird.
I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
So now you said your last surgery is 2011, right?
Yeah.
Well, you were 29?
I was 29. Yep.
Holy crap, that's another thing we have in common.
Yeah.
My last surgery was at 29.
Nice.
See? It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yep. You know,
Um,
yeah. And the thing about that surgery was I was terrified going into it. I was like, I was so scared, but to tell you the truth, I don't know if your experience was kind of like this, but I mean, I'm not gonna say recovery was fine because it really sucked. Like, it's a lot of hard work and it hurts and it's tough, but
Yeah.
I think I made it so much worse in my head before I went into surgery that it wasn't as bad as I was expecting because I was like, I was expecting to be like bedridden, not able to talk for like months after, not move, and
Yeah.
it wasn't as bad. It sucked, but it wasn't as bad as the anxiety beforehand was worse
Yep.
than the actual surgery itself, I think.
Yeah.
So,
So for me, like my last surgery, I was terrified.
yeah.
Like I just because the thing of it is like you had talked about like feeling fine and having the
Yeah.
you know bomb dropped on you. That was me in 2002 with my second surgery.
Yeah.
My surgery in 2014 I knew was coming
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
because like by the time that surgery hit in 2014, I had hit rock bottom,
Yeah.
like physically. Like I was sleeping like 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
And um so for my surgery, what they did is put in a conduit, and so
Mhm.
it was conduit replacement surgery.
Yes.
So prior to the surgery, I had asked my nurse, who I'd actually gotten to be close with um, during that time frame. I asked her if she would keep the old conduit so I could see it,
Yeah.
because I had never seen one.
Did they let you?
Here's the thing:
Yeah.
when they were pulling the old one out, it had gotten so bad that it crumbled in their hands.
Yeah, that's so crazy because the same pretty much same thing happened to me. They didn't know how bad it was, and then they got in there and they came out, of course, and it's like you see in the movies. They come out and tell your family, "If we hadn't have done this right now, today, she would have been dead." And they're like, "Oh my God." And they brought out what they could. It looked like a piece of cauliflower.
Yeah,
It was so swollen and scar tissue was just so built up. It's the same thing. Like, it was in such bad shape. And they were like, "We don't know how you didn't feel bad." But I figure I probably did feel bad, but I just didn't realize how bad it actually had gotten.
yeah.
So,
So and what I want people to get from this is like um, you can have friends that you don't necessarily get to see in person.
for sure.
Um, sometimes support groups, people in there have something that become bigger.
Yep.
And like I feel like, I mean, you and I have known each other for 7 years now.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, getting to know somebody, you find out that you have other things in common.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about us. And in case I didn't bring it up at the beginning, Jessica's from Texas. I'm from
Mhm.
Michigan.
Yep.
Two opposites in the country.
For sure.
Um, what started out, talking about hard stuff and you being there for me in my last surgery.
Mhm.
We found out that we had things in common.
Yeah.
Like we both like sports.
Yep.
Um, I know we both love MMA,
Oh my
which
gosh.
yeah.
Yes. Conor McGregor. Ah.
See, I'm old school.
Mhm.
I watched the UFC way in the beginning,
For sure.
back in '95, and so I've actually met UFC Hall of Famer Dan Severn.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, great guy, such a
Nice.
nice guy. I just a quick little story about that. I was so afraid of him when I first saw him because I
Uh,
one he's big,
yeah, yeah, for
and
sure.
number two, I saw what he did to people in the octagon.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Most humble, kindest, soft-spoken man I've ever met in my life.
Yep.
And so,
So I have a similar story to that. I've met a few because when I was an account manager I did marketing for Metro PCS,
yeah,
and the UFC was their sponsor. So I got to go to all the events where they would have UFC people come to the stores and meet the customers and do autographs. Well, I got to go to all those. So like I met Cowboy and
that's
talk
he's my
about
favorite fighter.
the nicest guy you've ever met. He brought beer with him. He brought a bunch of beer and was handing it out to all the customers and the people in the store. Like, and he was like, I just want to have a beer with all of you guys. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. He is one of my favorites because he is so nice. And Ronda Rousey, she's my favorite female. I met her in person. She is so short. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, she's beautiful, but I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, we definitely have that in common. I love UFC. I think it's fun to watch.
And the other thing we have in common, and
Mhm.
people are going to be shocked when they hear it from me,
Yeah.
but Young and the Restless.
Oh my gosh. 100%. Yes.
Yeah, it's so funny. People pick on me all the time because I watch it,
Yeah.
but it's so funny is I can go over to my parents' house, my mom's house,
Yep.
and we can sit and talk about it for hours.
Mhm.
Then there's people like my mother-in-law and you, if they miss an episode or haven't been able to watch,
Yep.
for some reason, I'm the one that they call.
Like, what happened today? I missed
Yeah,
it. Yes. Well,
yeah.
you know what's funny about that is I know 3 people who watch Young and the Restless with me, and they're all guys, including you. Yep, it's really crazy. I started watching it because when my parents are divorced and when I was like 12, middle school, at home all day, I had to babysit my siblings during the summer, so I couldn't go anywhere. So what do you do all day? There's nothing on, so I ended up starting to watch it and I haven't missed an episode since. I've been watching it since I was 12 and I love it.
So the reason I kind of caught wind of it is because of three people. It was all channel flipping.
Mhm.
Um, can't think of his name, the character's name. I think it was Deacon Sharp.
Mhm. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So Deacon Sharp, Sean Cannon,
Yep.
he was in the third Karate Kid movie.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's kind of how I made that connection.
Mhm.
Um, Devon
Yes.
had recognized his name from Family
Uh-huh.
Matters.
Oh, he was the little kid.
Yeah,
Yep.
Little Richie.
Yep. Wow.
And so, and then the last one was Eric Braeden,
Oh my gosh,
who
everyone
plays
knows.
Victor Newman, because I had seen,
Titanic.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's kind of how I started watching the show. And I realized all these people who had been in all these great movies and
Yep.
past projects
Mhm.
were on that show. And so I'm
For
like,
sure.
no. I was like, it's something to watch during the daytime.
Well, yeah, and for me, it started becoming like almost like a family member, someone to keep me company. Because when I was home, after I would have like a heart procedure, like a cath, or I was home after when I was 13 and I had that heart surgery, and I was in bed for a few weeks after, I
Yeah.
had nothing else. So I would watch his shows, and I've been watching for so long, it almost feels like family members to you. So it's just kind of something familiar that feels like home almost. So yeah.
So, two questions I want to end on, and I feel
Yeah.
like they're really important questions. The first one is, what have you gotten out of opening up to people about CHD?
Yeah. So I think like the main thing that I've learned is that I'm not the only one going through it because man, when you are 29, 13, 8 going through having open heart surgery, like you feel like you're the only one because it's hard to find other people that are in the same situation. So when I am talking to people in these support groups, it helps me realize that I'm not alone and there are so many people that are going through this. It's amazing. Like and every 1 in 100 babies are born with a CHD. You just have to find those. So I think that, and then the other thing that I've really gotten out of it is that it's okay to struggle, because everybody is having struggles with this, and mental health awareness with CHD should be like on the top of everyone's radar. And I am so fortunate that I recently switched to a new ACHD doctor, and she is like number one thing is mental health of her patients. And I think that's really cool having a doctor that actually focuses on that. Because
Yeah,
when I went to my last one and I was like, man, I'm struggling, I'm having anxiety, I'm having like, all these issues, he was like, you're young, it'll be fine. This one is like, you know what? That's so common for people with congenital heart disease, congenital heart defect, whatever you want to call it. It's so common, but
yeah,
no one talks about it. So I feel like in these support groups, I'm finding other people that are struggling with the same like issues that I am, and it's a place to talk, and they don't judge you. They're
yeah,
like, you know what? I feel the same exact way you do. I'm going through the same things. This is what I do. to help myself, or what do you do that works that you can give me advice on. So it's like a sounding board.
Yeah. And then, I kind of have to echo those same thoughts. Like, um, for me growing up, I had so many like big dreams for myself.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to be a pro wrestler.
Yeah.
I wanted to be like I loved baseball. Um,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And so I always like I wasn't in denial about having CHD,
Yeah,
but I didn't want that to be who I was.
for sure. Like your identity. Yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
didn't want that to be my identity.
Yeah.
But as I've gotten older and somewhat wiser,
Yeah,
I realized that it is a part of my identity,
for sure.
and that the only way people are going to know about it and want to support it and raise awareness for it
Yep.
is by claiming that identity.
100%. Yep.
And I tell people all the time, my scars, my surgeries
Yeah.
don't define who I am.
Yes,
And I
exactly.
think I think that was a huge problem for me when I was growing up, is I thought it defined me,
Yeah.
and a lot of other people thought it defined me.
Yeah,
But I feel like how I've overcame all of it is what really defines me,
of course.
and how I live my life and carry myself
Yep.
is what defines me.
Exactly. And I really like appreciate the fact that you try to spread awareness and, bring support to the CHD community, because it's hard to do that sometimes. It's hard. First of all, there are a lot of people who, you know, well, they don't care. They don't want to listen. They're like, oh, well, I don't have it. I don't know anybody else who has it. So it doesn't affect my life. You think it doesn't affect you until it does, until you know someone who has a baby that's born with it. And then you're like, oh, this affects me now.
Yeah,
So I appreciate the fact, I've seen you've done like news interviews and you've done all sorts of stuff, for the community. And I think that's really cool that you're not afraid to speak out on this kind of stuff. So thanks for doing that.
hey, not a problem. I love doing it. Like,
Yeah.
and like I said, for the longest time, didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But then, like, I think 2014 was the turning point for me for my last surgery.
Yeah.
Like, you know, becoming friends with you, talking to other people in the community,
Yeah.
um, it just really changed me, and
For
it
sure.
changed my perspective.
Yeah.
And so that's gonna be my last question, is because you talked about, you know, sometimes people don't talk about it
Yeah.
because it doesn't affect them.
Yeah.
So my last question would be, what would your advice be to a new parent,
Mm-hmm.
or someone that's a friend of a parent that has a child with CHD? Like, what advice would you give them?
Oh, I would probably tell them it's gonna be okay. Like, back when we were born, probably more me because I'm like an old lady now, but back
Whatever.
when I was born, it's completely different now than it was then. When now they do ultrasounds, you get ultrasounds all the time when you're pregnant. So they can come up with a game plan early on and figure out, how to treat the baby before the baby is even born. So, medical science has come so far. It's amazing what they can do now. Sometimes they can even do heart surgery before the baby's born. So, I would just say it's going to be okay. Just breathe. Let the doctors, help you through this, and see if you can find someone to relate to. Like, join a support group. Join as many as you can, and see if you can find someone that you can relate to, that can kind of help you through this and be a sounding board, someone to listen to. Sometimes you don't even need somebody to talk to. You just need somebody to listen to you, like rant for a while and then like, okay, it's off my chest and now I'm good. But I have a couple of friends who have actually reached out because they have babies that were born with CHD. So,
Yeah.
we stay in touch, and I, help them through their surgery. And I think being able to see someone that's 39 with the same thing that their baby has is really comforting, because they know, like, okay, this might be okay. If someone can make it through this, who was born back in the day where medicine was not like it is now, then I think we're looking good. And outcomes for CHD, they're good now. Like,
Yeah,
it's pretty common these days. So I
yeah,
think like more people that we can bring awareness to, I think the better off we're gonna be.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yep. And I guess my biggest piece of advice,
Hmm.
and I think I've said a lot over the years, is if you have kids with CHD
Yeah.
and they have dreams, encourage them and support them.
100%. Yes.
Um, because I feel like sometimes, parents are very protective of their kids
Yes.
that have chronic illnesses and
Yes.
diseases.
Hmm.
Um, and to me, like for me, like you said, my dream was always to be a pro wrestler or be
Yeah.
in professional sports. Physically, I couldn't do it,
Right.
and I had enough people around me to know better that I shouldn't even try it. Um, but once I started my blog
Yeah.
and started writing, there were a lot of people that were encouraging and
Yeah.
supportive and were like, hey, you may have not gotten your exact dream,
Exactly.
but you're channeling what you love and what you're passionate about.
It's fulfilling in a different way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so my advice to parents with kids out there with CHD or really any chronic condition is
Yeah.
if your kid has a dream,
Yep.
guide them on how to achieve it.
For sure. Yeah. When you were a kid, did you ever go to heart camp?
No,
So I did, and I only did it because like we got grants from the hospital, picked
yeah,
like a certain number of kids every year, and they would send the kids to it. Man, I was terrified when I was little to go because I'd never been away from home. I mean, I was a sheltered kid. My mom like watched me like a hawk because she was so afraid, because of my heart condition. Like she wouldn't let me out of her sight. Going to heart camp was probably one of the best experiences of my life. You meet other kids who are just like you. You go to the swimming pool and everybody has a scar like you. You're like, what
yeah,
in the world? It is so cool. If there are parents out there with kids that are school age that have CHD, I so encourage you to look into heart camps. And there's all sorts of the hospitals have groups for kids. I know the one in Dallas, they have Amazing Little Hearts, and that's a support group for kids with CHD. They all get together and play and do activities at the hospital. It's so important for these kids to know that they're not alone. Because
yeah,
when you're in your classroom and I used to be an elementary school teacher. When you're a little kid and you're in the classroom and you have a scar that nobody else has, makes you feel different, right? But
hmm,
when you're around other little kids that are the same age as you that all have the same scar, it's like a feeling that you can't even describe.
yeah,
Then that's like when you really realize maybe I'm not the only one. Like I'm not by myself here.
yeah.
So I encourage all parents to let their kids do, activities and reach out to support groups for their kids too, not only for themselves.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, not thank you for having me on. This is really cool and I love this, and I think bringing awareness to CHD should be something we do all year, not just during CHD week, but
Amen.
this is an awesome time to shine the spotlight on it. So thanks for having me.
Yes, I want to thank you. Honestly, like I said before my surgery in 2014, like I mean, I knew people.
Yeah,
A lot of them were parents
for sure.
with kids,
Yep.
like older than me,
Yeah.
and so they still didn't quite understand what I was going through. And for you to reach out just out of the blue for whatever reason,
Yeah.
I mean, it was literally like a week or two before my surgery
Yep. I
that you
remember
reached
that.
out,
Yeah,
and like seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you,
for sure.
just
Well,
for
now
being a friend.
you're stuck with me for life now. So
Exactly. And I tell people all the time, I was like, Jessica, she is my internet BFF.
yep. Yep.
And like I am so grateful that we have the technology to be able to talk on a regular basis. And I know you brought it up earlier about how sometimes we need somebody to rant to.
Yes.
And we've ranted to each other a couple
For
of
sure.
times.
Oh yeah.
So that being said, thank you so much.
Yeah. For oh, you're
Um
welcome. Thank you.
anybody out there that's listening to this, if you want real good information on how to raise and support awareness for congenital heart disease, I would suggest conqueringcht.org.
There you go.
All right. Well, we're wrapping up. Hope you all have a great week.
Thank you. Bye.